Welcome back. The New York City Department of Small Business Services plans to administer $100 million for the New York City Small Business COVID 19 Resilience Grant Program. Selected by the New York City Department of Small Business Services, Lendistry, the largest minority led deployer of capital and COVID relief funding, will lead this initiative. Joining me for discussion on this is Everett K. Sands, CEO of Lendistry. Everett, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, Kibin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Can't complain.
So, can you tell me about the New York City Small Business COVID 19 Relief Resilience Grant?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a program administered by the city, obviously sponsored by the mayor, legislative bodies within the city, that is to help small businesses in terms of being able to have money to go towards items that they might have need to either be refunded or expenses they might have as a relate of COVID. So think about it like in terms of past expenses they might have or future expenses that they might have in terms of reopening or moving forward during this pandemic.
Now, I think this is really cool and says a lot about your organization. Can you just explain why New York City chose your organization, Lendistry, to lead this initiative?
Yeah, sure. So Lendistry has a good amount of experience in terms of deploying capital. This year, we'll probably deploy roughly about $8-9 billion to about 600,000 small businesses. Sometimes that's loans, sometimes that's grants. We have a significant amount of experience in terms of helping counties and cities and states in terms of deploying capital. And I think equally as important, or maybe more important to your users, is we've had and shown the results of being able to deploy to underserved small businesses. So being able to help those who might not normally get an opportunity to receive a grant or receive access to capital. That's in the fabric of everything we do at Lendistry, and it's inside of our mission.
Now, for this grant, there will be 3 rounds to determine who will receive money first. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so New York City, like many of our partners, has what we call a priority funding. And so what they're looking at is those businesses that have been somewhat disadvantaged in terms of their access to capital in the past. And so they're starting with those businesses first. And then they're essentially tranching. And so what that means is they're taking a step up based on income and based on kind of the viability of the business. And so they're trying to help those again that have been hardest hit first, haven't had routine access to capital or traditional access to capital first. Then they're moving up to a second group and then to a third group.
Now, the initiative will award grants of $10,000 to eligible small businesses. What are some of the industries that will see these grants and why?
Yeah, so there's definitely a focus in terms of prioritization in some of the arts and cultural businesses. But that being said, if you go through the 3 tranches, all businesses will get an opportunity. The city of New York is naturally trying to do somewhat between reopening and then helping those who, again, have been hardest hit by the pandemic.
And can you explain what are some of the eligibility requirements?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a requirement in terms of when they spend the money. The bills have to have been since March. Let me make sure I get it right. March 3rd of, thank you, of 2021. And the money can be spent into December of 2024. They also must be in New York City. So they're trying to help the New York City businesses. I think that's kind of obvious. They have to have less than 500 employees. They're trying to help some of the smaller businesses. And so they're using the size of the business as one of the things that they're looking at. Through the individual tranches, they're looking at the revenue sizes of the business. Again, I don't want to make anyone think that they won't be able to get the grant, but there's definitely a focus on some of the smaller revenue size businesses in the beginning. Outside of that, there's some other guidelines. I don't want to get too deep into the specifics because there's some variations of different things that the business owner might want to look at. So I'm going to encourage them to go to covertresilience.nyc. So HTTPS / covertresilience.nyc to get more information.
We often hear about grants being awarded to businesses, but what does the money actually provide relief for? And what are some examples of situations where this money could be helpful?
Absolutely. So I would tend to try to get the business owner to keep it really simple. So think of things that as a business owner you've paid in the past, or that might be ongoing, or that you might have in the future. So top of mind comes things like payroll and benefits of your team members, maybe your rent payment or your mortgage payment. You might have utilities or other expenses connected to your business. Also think about reopening and other things that are going to be related as we go into kind of this new normal with COVID.
And I'm happy that you brought up COVID because Lendistry has previously offered relief to businesses owned by women, minorities, and veterans, which I thought was very interesting. Um, how are businesses owned by people in these communities uniquely affected by the pandemic?
Yeah, so Kibin, I mean, these businesses were in a precarious position, at least a financially precarious position, kind of going into COVID. Lendistry and other mission-based lenders have tried to take charge and try to say, how do we sit at the table? How do we help to make sure these businesses are represented when rules are being created for programs such as this COVID program in NYC? And also how we think about the deployment of capital. So we're trying to do things like make mobile ready apps and online programs that they can have access to capital to. I think this is the beginning of something great as we think about other ways to add scale and we think about other ways to deploy capital to these businesses.
No, I mentioned that it was women, minorities, and veterans. Why do businesses in these communities often struggle or find it hard to kind of get a grasp on like owning a business in comparison to maybe uh, businesses that are owned by white people or, just people who aren't struggling as much?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, and it's a broad answer, but I'll kind of give you maybe three things. I think the first thing is we don't have a tendency inside of those communities to have a pass down of information. So whether that be a knowledge base or whether that be an actual business, right? Are we transferring that wealth in terms of business ownership? I think those are things that we're trying to work on. At Lendistry, we have a nonprofit called the Center. What we do there is we do one-on-one counseling, we do online education, but equally as important in some of these grant programs is you'll see at covertresilience.nyc, we have application guides in multiple languages. We've got videos to help people in terms of how they apply. But I think it's that transfer of information and that knowledge base is one of the reasons. I think the second thing that we need to look at is who are the deployers of capital. Lendistry is minority led, as you probably have figured out now looking at me. But how do we bring more minority led, mission focused institutions to the table to act as the deployers of capital, to act as those who could help in the systemic structuring of the programs? And that's involved in the rulemaking and how we think about the rules and how we think about people being able to get the access to capital. And then the third thing is I think it has to be the marketing and the outreach, the things that you're doing. So thank you. We've got to change the narrative. We got to let people know that the programs exist, that they're available to them, and then make them feel comfortable in terms of applying, showing them success stories and others that look like them and maybe speak the same language as them, maybe in the same industry that have also received these programs. And hopefully we're doing a good job of that.
Now, what documents should business owners prepare, and how can those who qualify sign up for this grant?
Absolutely. So I'm going to mention covertresilience.nyc as the website to go to. I'm going to encourage the business owner to either take one of the webinars, maybe watch one of the introduction videos, take a look at the FAQs. That's going to help in terms of document preparation. That's also going to help in terms of being ready to apply. This is not, the application is open 24/7. And so they'll have an opportunity to be able to go and to be able to apply at a 24/7. So early in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening. In terms of documents, it's going to be some of the basic traditional items. So it's going to be a copy of their photo ID. It's going to be their tax returns. It's going to be able to show proof that they're in business today. We're going to ask for NYS 45 only if it's a larger business greater than 3 million in revenue. We're going to ask for a W-9 form, and we're going to ask for some type of proof that you've actually been affected by COVID. Now, that can be a variety of different things. That could be 2 tax returns where you should, here's what I made in 19 versus 20, or maybe a quarter over quarter. Let me show you Q1 of one quarter during COVID versus Q1 of a past quarter, 2019. So you can see that there was a loss because we're looking to show that loss. Again, in terms of that website, it's going to be covidresilience.nyc.
All right. Now, I want to talk about the importance of accessibility because we noticed on your website there's actually a dyslexia friendly option, which is very rare. So, can you just tell us why it was important for your organization to add that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you think about access to capital, one, there's no silver bullet, right? And we have to recognize that we've got to meet the business owner where they're at. And part of language is also accessibility, right? It's helping people that might need um, a better orientation of our website. They might need the words to be bigger. They might need help in terms of the various languages that we offer. And so we're trying to think about these things as we think about one, being culturally conscious, and as we're also thinking about how to meet the small business where they're at. A lot of these things have come through feedback of other grant applicants and other loan applicants where they're saying, hey, if you made this tweak or you did this thing, this will make it better for somebody else. So, hats off to the small business owners that are constantly giving us feedback and helping us to improve our systems and our processes and our procedures.
Well, yeah, thank you for explaining that because we thought that was really cool. We never really seen that before, and so I definitely wanted to touch on that. How
Yeah.
can people get in touch and learn more?
Absolutely. So I'm going to encourage them to do a couple different things. One, we've got external partners like NYS, SBS, and several other partners. Most of them are mission based. So you're going to see some words like community development financial institutions and other mission based organizations that are helping. You can find them again on that website, covidresilience.nyc. There are going to be webinars in which they're hosting, in which to give more information about the program. You could also call into our call center, and that number is 888 959 6471. Again, 888 959 6471. It's a new number, so sorry, I had to take a look at it. But we want to encourage you to either utilize one of our partners, go on the website, download the application guide, go on the website to watch one of the videos, attend one of the webinars that are being offered not only across the city, but also in multiple languages, and or you can call our call center, which can also help you.
All right, Everett, thank you so much for joining me for this discussion.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
That's all for our show today. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Kibin Alleyne, wishing you and yours safety and wellness now and always. See you next time.